The franchise tag window has a way of rewriting the board overnight, and if you want to know how that matters to the 49ers, this is the place to be. Right now, teams are making decisions that will keep certain players off the open market, and those moves can either shut a door or suddenly throw another one wide open. Let me walk you through the basics fast so the rest makes sense. A franchise tag is a one-year protection that lets a team keep a pending free agent by paying him a guaranteed figure. A transition tag is similar but offers a different matching right. The practical takeaway for you is simple. When a contender tags a guy, he's not coming to your team unless a trade happens. That reality forces clubs to pivot, and that's exactly what the 49ers should be watching. If the Colts tag their top young receiver or work a long-term deal with him, that doesn't just remove one name from the shopping list. It makes their biggest cap headache the next most likely candidate to be traded or cut. That's where a name like Michael Pittman Jr. becomes interesting. I'm not saying he's guaranteed available, but when a team has two expensive players looming, a quarterback and a wideout, they have to make math choices. Cutting or trading the larger cap hit becomes an option, and that creates opportunity for buyers who already have a top-flight QB and a stable system, which is exactly where the 49ers sit. So what should you watch for in the next few days? First, don't be distracted by headlines about who might be doing the tagging. Look for the domino effect. If a Colts tag happens on Alec Pierce, the market shifts. If a different team tags a big tight end or receiver, other clubs suddenly flip into seller mode because their payrolls and draft plans change. Second, remember this. Tags are about short-term control, not long-term happiness. There are plenty of players who prefer a long deal and will take a hometown extension. Others want to test free agency or are in a contract year that makes them tradable assets. For the 49ers, that distinction matters because it changes whether you pay draft capital for a player or just negotiate a one-year rollover. Now, let's talk fit for a second. Kyle Shanahan's offense values route nuance, blocking willingness, and guys who can operate in multiple spots. That's why certain veterans are more appealing than raw speed monsters who need a year to learn the offense. If San Francisco brings in a veteran receiver, this March, you want someone who can line up outside, slide into the slot, and block downfield on run plays, not a project who only wins vertically. The roster depth chart already has pieces that can handle some volume, so the ideal ad is a proven chain mover who raises the floor, not necessarily a flash piece who might take a season to click. Quick audience check. I want to hear from you. Do you prefer the team to pursue a veteran WR now, or to stand pat and bet on the draft? Drop a short vet or draft in the comments and tell me why. If you're new here and want daily Niners breakdowns like this one, hit subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss a breaking trade or cut. I break these scenarios down as they happen, and I want you on the front row. Before I move deeper into specific names and contract realities, here's a short mid-roll. If this channel helps you stay ahead of the news, consider supporting the production with a super thanks or hype. It's not a donation. It's fuel for the quest for the next Super Bowl trophy. Those small contributions let us upgrade gear, do deeper film work, and give you cleaner, faster breakdowns. If we get to 2,000 subscribers this week, I'll drop a bonus trade board that walks through 3 realistic deal packages the 49ers could make. So if you value that content, hit subscribe and consider throwing a little hype our way to speed it along. Okay, next up I'm going to take that franchise tag fallout and zero in on the most. Realistic single-player swing. Whether Michael Pittman Jr. is the kind of move the 49ers should make, how much bang you'd get for the buck, and what it would mean for guys already on the roster. Stick with me. I'll walk you through film traits, contract levers, and the exact decision points the front office will face. If that sounds good, get ready, because in the next section we compare Pittman to the internal and cheaper alternatives and map the realistic trade or cut scenarios the front office will consider. End of Chapter 1. Now let's zero in on the name that makes the most sense if the dominoes fall the right way. Michael Pittman Jr. And I want you to really think this through with me, because this isn't about fantasy football numbers. This is about fit, contract structure, culture, and what gives the 49ers the cleanest path back to a Super Bowl run. Pittman is not a flashy 4.3 speed highlight merchant. He's not going to give you 5 60-yard bombs a year. What he gives you is stability. He's 6'1", over 220 pounds, strong through contact, and he wins in ways that translate in January. He boxes defenders out, he works the intermediate levels, he can line up as the X, shift into the slot, and he's willing to block. That last part matters more than people think in a Kyle Shanahan offense. If you can't block, you're not playing. Period. Now think about the environment he's coming from. The quarterback situation in Indianapolis has been unstable. When you're catching passes from a revolving door at QB, your efficiency and consistency are going to suffer. Put that same receiver into a more structured system with timing, rhythm, and defined reads, and you might see a different level of production. That's the projection you're making if you bring him to Santa Clara. But here's the real question. At what cost? If he's cut, you're negotiating a reworked deal. That's ideal. If he's traded, you're likely giving up mid-round draft capital and inheriting a contract that might need to be restructured. The 49ers have done this before. They're not afraid to move money around if they believe the player raises the floor of the offense. Now compare that to the in-house options. You've got dependable, culture-setting receivers who know the system. They block, they compete, they understand the expectations. That familiarity has real value. Chemistry isn't just a buzzword. It's execution on 3rd and 6 when the season is on the line. So if Pittman costs significantly more than your internal option, you have to ask yourself whether the upgrade is worth both the money and the draft capital. Here's where I lean. As a pure receiver, Pittman is on a higher tier than a rotational possession guy. He's more complete as a volume target. He can handle 120 targets if needed. He has already shown he can produce 1,000-yard seasons. And at 28, you're not talking about a player at the cliff. You're talking about a veteran still in his productive window. But roster building is about balance. If you're allocating $20+ million to a receiver, that affects what you can do at pass rusher. It affects how aggressive you can be at offensive line. It affects extensions. Every move is connected. So let me throw this to you directly. If the 49ers could acquire Pittman for a reasonable mid-round pick and restructure his deal, would you do it? Yes or no? Drop it in the comments and explain your reasoning. I want to see where the faithful stands on this one. There's also a strategic advantage to making this move in March instead of waiting for April. If you secure a proven starting receiver before the draft, you eliminate desperation. You're not forced to grab one at pick 27 just because you need one. You let the board come to you. If the best player available is a defensive stud, you take him. If an offensive lineman falls, you pounce. Flexibility is power, and that's the hidden value here. Trading for a veteran like Pittman isn't just about adding him, it's about unlocking the draft. It's about giving Shanahan options instead of pressure. Another angle to consider is how Pittman fits in a room that already has defined personalities. You need someone who competes without disrupting culture. From everything we've seen, Pittman brings professionalism and toughness. He's not a diva. That matters, especially when you're trying to chase another championship window. But I also understand the hesitation. Draft capital is precious. Plus, space is finite, and this roster has other needs, particularly on the defensive front. If you swing big at receiver, you might be passing on reinforcing the trenches. So here's the big picture takeaway. Pittman is realistic. He's scheme compatible. He raises the floor. The only real variable is price. If you enjoy breaking down moves like this, the real implications, not just the headlines, make sure you're subscribed. We're pushing toward 2,000 subscribers, and when we hit it, I'm dropping a full off-season blueprint video mapping out free agency, trades, and the draft in one complete strategy. Help us get there. And if you want to directly fuel better film breakdowns and deeper analysis, consider using Super Thanks or Hype. That support goes straight back into building better content for this community and fueling the quest for the next Super Bowl trophy. Now here's where this gets even more interesting, because whether the 49ers trade for a veteran or not, the biggest decision might still come down to what happens on draft night, and that's where philosophy matters. Best player available versus drafting for need. That tension is going to define this offseason. In the next part, I'm going to walk you through exactly how the front office should approach pick 27 and why locking in a veteran before April could completely change how aggressive they can be when they're on the clock. Now let's zoom out and talk philosophy, because this is where seasons are won or quietly sabotaged. Draft night is not about filling out a checklist, it's about maximizing value while protecting your window. And if the 49ers handle March correctly, April becomes a weapon instead of a stress test. Here's the truth. If you wake up after free agency still saying, "We have to draft a starting wide receiver at 27, you've already lost leverage. Same thing if you're saying, "We absolutely must draft a pass rusher," or "We need a starting guard right now." When you draft out of desperation, you reach. And when you reach, you pass on players who could anchor your roster for a decade. That's why a move like acquiring a proven veteran receiver before the draft has strategic value beyond just the player. It lets the board fall naturally. If a top defensive prospect unexpectedly slides, you take him. If an offensive lineman with a first-round grade drops into your lap, you don't hesitate. If someone calls offering a trade-down package because their guy is still on the board, you have the freedom to listen. The real draft is always crazier than the mocks. Every year, players can't miss in the top 10 fall into the 20s. Every year, someone projected in the late first goes in the second. Groupthink collapses the moment 32 separate front offices reveal their true boards, so the goal isn't to predict chaos, it's to be prepared for it. Think about this scenario. You pass on a veteran in March because you want to save resources. Draft night comes. The run on receivers happens earlier than expected. Now you're staring at a choice between a player you graded as a mid-second rounder or reaching because you feel pressure. That's how you compound mistakes. On the flip side, imagine you added a stable veteran target. Now you're sitting at 27 and a dynamic defensive piece, maybe a linebacker with elite range or a pass rusher with rare burst, is still there. You don't have to justify the pick. You simply take the best football player and improve the roster. That's the balance between need and best player available. It's not one or the other. It's preparing your roster so that best player available can win. There's also something else people overlook. Depth matters more over 17 games than star power does in September. Injuries happen, slumps happen. The 49ers learned that the hard way. If you strengthen two position groups instead of one, say add a veteran receiver, and still draft defensive front help, you're insulating yourself from all collapse. Let me ask you this straight up. When draft night comes, would you rather the 49ers draft strictly for need or take the highest graded player on their board regardless of position? Type need or BPA in the comments. I want to see where the faithful stands because this debate defines championship building, and here's where I land. March is for solving problems. April is for creating advantages. If the front office makes one calculated veteran move, not reckless, not desperate, they give themselves the power to attack value in the draft. That's how you extend a Super Bowl window instead of narrowing it. That's how you keep the roster competitive even when contracts get heavier and expectations get louder. And remember, flexibility is leverage. Leverage is power. So as the franchise tag deadline shakes out and names start shifting off and onto the market, watch the ripple effects. One team's tag decision can become another team's opportunity. If the price is right, a veteran like Pittman could stabilize the offense. If it's not, you pivot and let the draft do its work. The key is not locking yourself into one rigid path. If you've made it this far, you're part of the core community. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next move breakdown. We're pushing hard toward 2,000 subscribers, and every single one of you helps this channel grow into something bigger for the faithful. If you want to directly support the growth and help us level up, production, better audio, deeper film sessions, cleaner graphics, use super thanks or hype. Think of it as fueling the quest for the next Super Bowl trophy together. This isn't about donations. It's about building something stronger for the community. Now I've got one final question for you before we wrap this up. If you had to choose today, are you making a March trade splash, or are you trusting the draft to deliver your next impact starter? Drop your answer below and defend it. I'll be in the comments debating with you.